Hello. Hello everyone, this is Shannon with Waffle Flower. It says we are live here. Hope you guys are coming in and joining our live class, our stencil and stamp class for some of our new releases coming in the next 3 months. Oh great, we're live. I see some people joining. I have Sunshine helping me today. Hi Notions. She's going to be popping in here too, so I want to give her a tiny bit of time to come in, and I'm going to open up my computer real quick here. So, good morning. Morning. I hope you guys are having a nice morning. I've got my coffee here and I've got one goal, not to spill it. Let's see if I can avoid spilling my coffee, because that's definitely something I would do. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing with you some of the cards that we're going to create today. I'm really excited about these cards and these new products, because these are some new products for Waffle Flower. We're making stencils now. Good morning, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I just love them. I'm having so much fun playing with stencils. And what's really unique about these stencils from Waffle Flower is that she's designed, Nina, the owner of Waffle Flower, has designed these coordinating stamp sets. So they work really beautifully together. And I just think they're really cool and a lot of fun. So let's get started a little bit here. We do have I like to pack our day, so we do have a lot of cards to do. Oh, there's Sunshine there, great. So are we ready to have a great class? We are ready to have an awesome class. So I'm gonna show you the cards we're gonna make real quick while we give everybody a little bit of time to get in. First is this project here with our new stencil and stamp set, Rose Bouquet. This is an awesome set. I love it. We're going to create this card. I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks for ink blending and getting the alignment really perfect with these stencils and stamp sets, which I'm really excited about. Then our second card is going to be also a stencil and stamp set. And it's going to be the Lighthouse set. We're going to do some really fun ink blending and creating this whole scene. And I really love this set because you can really create some different, there's a lot of components in the stencil that will allow you to, oh, it snowed. It did not snow here in Arizona. There's a lot of components here that will allow you to create these different scenes. You can even do them for landscape or just, I think it's a really fun set for scene building as well. And then our third and final card has these adorable birthday kitties. Aren't they so cute? Now this is not a stencil and stamp set, but it is a stencil set that allows you to do all the different color layers for your little critters. So I'm really excited about this one. Very different kind of set. So let's get kind of started here. I think I've given enough time for people to get in. Before I turn the camera down to my workspace, I want you guys, so you have hopefully you have your kits in front of you. If you didn't get your kit beforehand, you can definitely be watching this on the replay and go with us step by step that way too as well. Beware, there is a 2-minute delay between us. Okay, thank you. I'll try to stop and do checks and see if you guys if we're kind of at the same pace. Ooh, cold Norway. Wow. It's not, I think it's cold here in Arizona, but I'm sure nobody else would think it's cold. Let me grab the stamp, the Rose Bouquet stamp and stencil set so you can see what that is. And I think so this is the first product we're going to be using today. This is the Rose Bouquet stencil and stamp set. I'm going to go ahead, so while you guys are getting that out, I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera down onto my workspace so we can get started with our projects today. So just give me a second. It's going to go black while I adjust the camera, so just give me a second. Okay. Always have to figure out how to do it here. There we go. Move it here. All right. And Sunshine will be helping me answer your questions. So please post those in the comments if you have any questions. Oh, thank you for sharing the SKU for those. Thank you. So this is the Rose Bouquet stencil and stamp set. there is also a rose bouquet matching die. So these are the products we'll be working with first. So if you can get those out. And I believe someone mentioned the new envelopes. We also have these new cards and envelopes. There is a misprint here and we will be fixing that. We'll be sending new labels to fix that. But this is an awesome heavyweight cardstock in here. You have 4 card bases and, excuse me, and 4 envelopes. And there is, I do want to point out, there is a mistake on the product sheet, which I shared at the beginning of, or in the description of this video. I shared links for notions, links for the project sheet, so the instructions, and a link to the product list. And there's a mistake on the product list. This die is not mentioned. Another beautiful die is mentioned, the heart frame die, but this is the rose bouquet matching die. So this, we want to make sure that we get that right info out there as well, because there is a mistake on the product sheet for that. But you also have these envelopes too. We actually won't be using a card base for this first card, but if you, I'm going to be using a craft card base just for contrast. But if you want to just use a white card base that's included in the kit for this first card, you're more than welcome to. So I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to make sure Sunshine is, I'm not seeing everything. Okay. Okay, everything looks good. All right, I'm going to make sure I can keep up with everything in case there's any questions. All right. So let's open up the, oh, it is correct on the project sheet. Oh, great, great. Maybe it was fixed. Awesome, I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, it's rose bouquet matching die. Yes, not the heart frame. It's a beautiful die, but not what we're using for today's project. These products both are just released. They're brand new. They came out in our January release, so we're really excited about these. And I should show you, so the Stencil-n-Stamp set, I want to show you the packaging here because I think it really does a great job of kind of organizing you, kind of showing you how it's all organized or how all the parts of the stencil is laid out. And then you get that picture also of the accompanying stamp set. I went ahead and pulled them out. So here's the stencil. And the stencil has, you can see the Waffle Flower title here of the set, the number, the SKU. I just like to have that, to be aware of that, so I can make sure I'm always facing the right way. That's the way that you want it up. So you want to make sure that the text is always legible. And then you have all these negatives, or they can be used as masks, part of this. They're still attached. There's a little tiny tab. So if you haven't removed the tabs yet, you do need to snip those real quick. Let's see if I can kind of show you where they're just like 2 on each image or each negative here. You can see they're just held right there. And they're labeled too. So you got A, B for all the parts, C. And there's also lines to help you line up with the front of an A2 card base or an A2 panel, which I think is really helpful to get it nice and straight. Okay, so I'm gonna actually grab my set that I already snipped all the little negative pieces out. I can do one real quick if you haven't done that yet and you just wanna see it done. Let's see, I'll do the bow. We actually need all of these removed for this project. We're gonna use everything, all the stencils for this first card. So if you haven't done that yet, you wanna quickly kind of snip those free. See, there we go, I got that one. See if we can get my scissors in here and get this last one. There we go. They practically kind of just pull apart. It's just a tiny amount of plastic. Oh, good. I'm so glad you love the packaging. Nina does an amazing job. They're just so beautiful, and she's really detail-oriented and really makes sure that it's very clear and easy to understand. Okay, so I'm gonna put this aside. I want to see if you guys are, let me put that down so my camera doesn't freak out. Let's see if you guys are ready to go. You have your masks or your negatives cut, so your stencils, all the parts are separated. I just want to make sure that we are there at that point before I dive in. I'm like trying to find this here. I'm having a hard time. Okay, great. Now I see it. Okay. Directions on the rose bouquet set. Okay, that is correct. On the directions, it says rose bouquet matching die. That is correct. Yes, that is the correct one. The rose bouquet matching die is the die set we are using. All right, I'm not seeing anybody saying they're not ready to go, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. So for this first card, you're going to need a white base, a white panel. So an A2 white panel. It doesn't have to be exactly that size, but I know you can get all three parts. Your rose bouquet, kind of the base and the bow will all fit on here snugly, but they'll fit. Okay, ready, Freddy. Good. I like to see that. There's no there's no craft paper included for the the base, so you can definitely use, a card base that was included in the cards and envelopes. You can use a white one if you want. I'm going to use a craft one just for contrast. You also have, I know you have, even though it's for the third card, but you have a J.J. Bolton Rainbows paper pad. So if you want to use a sheet from this, you can definitely use something like that as well. If you want to use what's included in the kit, some of these would be really pretty too. So that's a possibility as well. But no, the craft cardstock base is not included, nor is the white A2 panel. So it can just be white cardstock. It doesn't have to be an A2 panel size. You just need some white cardstock. Most people have A2 panels kind of ready to go. That's why I mentioned that will work if you have those already cut and ready to go. New stencils usually have several mask pieces, especially for larger ones. Yes. So let me grab my one that's already cut and ready to go. I'm going to put some of these aside. And we are going to start by ink blending by actually stamping, no, don't fall. This part right here, which is the kind of the sack and little greenery that goes around. Bring them on camera. Is that seen? Oh, I see what that means. Okay, I'm going to use my Misty to stamp. You can definitely use an acrylic block if you prefer. I'm going to pull my camera away a little bit. I feel like it's a little too close. So just give me a second. Good morning. Thanks for joining me. All right, sorry about that. I just felt that was a little too close. Okay, so I'm going to start simply by stamping this, and we're going to use some black ink. I prefer to use a dye ink or something that dries really quick. So I'm going to use Memento Tuxedo Black ink. You really can use whatever ink you prefer, but preferably something that dries fast, because we're going to go pretty much from stamping it to ink blending. And if you're using something like a pigment ink, you can kind of, they'll still be wet a little bit, so when you start ink blending, you'll start dragging that black ink and smearing it around a little bit. So let me open this up and stamp this. So if you're following along, the first thing you're going to do is just stamp the flowers in the sack in some black cardstock. I'm sorry, in some black ink onto some white cardstock. And I'm going to do it on the lower, to fit everything onto this A2 panel, I'm going to position it pretty low at the bottom of my A2 panel. Pretty low there. Give myself enough room. This measurement for an A2 panel is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. It does not have to be exactly this dimension. I just know that all three things will fit on here if we're careful. Yeah, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Thank you for sharing that. Again, it can be even a large piece, that doesn't matter. You could use a larger piece if you have some. Just some white cardstock is just all you need. And I'm gonna stamp, just ink this up and stamp it. I also like using my Misty because I can stamp it a couple times and get a nice bold image if it doesn't stamp the first time. Okay, great. And I think I'm gonna stamp it one more time, even though that looks really good. Just make it a little bolder. Okay, so now we're actually ready to start using the stencil and start ink blending. We'll come back to stamping. You can actually remove this if you want. You could even leave it in there if you want to stamp it again after you ink blend to just make all the blacks even more crisp, but I'm actually going to be done with that. I'm not going to stamp it again. So let's start ink blending. I'm going to grab my stencil. If I can figure out where I put it. It's so crazy how quickly everything gets all out of sorts. Oh, there it is. Okay. And when I store my stencils, after I clip them, I like to use a little piece of washi tape to kind of put them in place. Definitely don't have to do it. I just feel like that's neat and tidy. And I reuse this washi tape every time. I'll just kind of stick it to the side, and then when I'm done, after I've cleaned everything, I'll stick the washi tape back on and kind of store it that way. It's a good way to make sure I haven't lost anything too. And we're going to start with the greenery. So I'm going to pull out, which is labeled E on the stencil. So pull those off, pull off the washi tape and pull out the masks. We're not going to be using those. These are really handy to have just in case, but we're not using those today. And then I'll just line it up with the image. Now you probably want to use, let me move it up more centered. Now I'm going to use painter's tape to kind of hold my stencil in place. You could just, hold it by hand because it's not really a big area. It's just a little area that we're doing. I reuse my painter's tape I use it till it's lost all its stick. I'll just stick it right back on the roll and use it over and over and over again. So I'm very conservative with my painter's tape, so I don't worry about using it kind of liberally because I will come back to it and use it. I'll save it and use it over and over again. But you could hold it, but you definitely want to be aware of down here and not get your ink down there. So you might want to mask that off. That might be the one thing you want to do. I hope that makes sense. And we did, on the product list, we have all of the colors that I used. You feel free though to use different colors if you want. I'm using Distress inks. So that was all on the project list. I'm starting with the Mowed Lawn and Pine Needles. That's what I'm going to use to ink blend these. So let me grab my blending tools. You can definitely use little ink blending brushes if you prefer. I'm going to use the foam blenders. Just make sure everything's still good here. Okay, good. Make sure I haven't lost anybody. Is everybody feeling like they're caught up? They're ready to go. They have the paper. They have their image stamped and they're masked. I don't want to get too far ahead. I'm just doing a quick check. And again, you can use whatever ink colors you want. Really don't have to use the colors I picked up. But if you want to follow along exactly, you can definitely do that too. I'm going to start with, let me see. Let's do it that way. I'm going to start with Mowed Lawn and Pine Needles. That's what I'm using, Mowed Lawn and Pine Needles. Great, okay, good. I'm gonna start with Mowed Lawn, which is my lighter color. I will almost always use, when I ink blend, because I like to create gradations, that's my favorite thing to do with these stencils, is to create gradations. It's a really fast and easy way to almost look like you Copic colored your your cards. That's why I really love these stencils, because they make coloring so easy and so fast. So I think they're just a huge time saver, and they take some of that stress of coloring out of, like, just out of the card making. Thank you for sharing the numbers, the SKUs for these. So Mowed Lawn is what I'm starting with, and I'm just going to ink blend all of these completely with Mowed Lawn. Let's scoot this. So real simple. You could even do a little gradation with the Mowed Lawn if you want to, because you can even do this with one color. You can get gradations. So if you want to, if you don't have a lot of colored inks, or if someone doesn't have a lot of colored inks, that doesn't mean they can't do ink blending with stencils. They can still get a lot done with just a few. So there you can see a little gradation with just that Mowed Lawn. Okay, so I'm done with Mowed Lawn. Now I'm going to move on to pine needles. And for pine needles, I'm going to kind of ink blend it a little bit darker here and here, just to add a little bit of contrast and to make a little gradation. Just make it pop a little bit. And I do think that additional color, because it's a lot pine needles is a little different than Mowed Lawn, adds more interest too. You can always tap off excess onto I'm using the water media mat, which I think is an awesome surface to work on for ink blending, especially with stencils, because it doesn't have that slick surface. So color really made those bad boys pop. Oh, cool, great, I'm glad. But the water media mat is so great for ink blending, because that non-slick surface really helps to just kind of keep your paper in place, not move around away from you. Okay, I think that's all I'm gonna do. Just a little teeny bit. And then you can actually remove the stencil after you've done that ink blending. And there you have your greenery all blended, and it looks so pretty. Look how perfectly it lines up with that stamped line. I love it. Gorgeous. And it looks almost like you may have even Copic colored this, because that's beautiful, very smooth gradation. Actually, this is probably better than if I Copic colored it. Let's be honest. I don't think I could get that smooth of gradation, at least I can't when I Copic color. So I'm going to remove those and put that aside. We're actually done with those two greens for this card. And we can move on to our little, this could be a pot, but I think it looks like a little burlap sack. But you could definitely kind of ink blend it like a terracotta pot if you wanted to kind of change the look of it a little bit. So we're going to get this negative piece here, kind of the negative for the rose bouquet. Inside it, you can see you have what you need to ink blend, that just B, for the sack. So you're going to line that up. This one you might want to grab more masks, especially like right here. See, I have a problem when I ink blend that I kind of get crazy and messy and I forget about the area around it. So this might be when you want to use a little bit more painter's tape. Yes, I love that the stencils are included. It's really like a well thought out kit, or, you know, it's like everything you need to really make a thorough project. Let me grab my tape off here. And again, I reuse my painter's tape, so until it's not sticky anymore. You can definitely use something else besides painter's tape if you like washi tape or something. Just some kind of tape, to kind of low tack tape to hold it down. Good. Question on the die that it does not have a metal piece across the top. Only cuts the, yes, the die will cut out separately, so you can have just the heart bouquet if you want. Let me grab it, find the die here. Yes, they're separate, so you don't have to do them separately. We're gonna actually glue them together. You'll see us kind of put these together. But yes, the die, I think this is your question. The die will only cut out the bottom of this here. It will only cut out this, but it will leave this uncut. So you'll have to physically cut it with like a pair of scissors. What happens when we if we arrange it right, we get this kind of close enough after we cut it, it's pretty much cut already. But it doesn't have to be perfection. You want a little bit of lip left here so you have something to glue the roses onto. I hope that makes sense. But that was done intentionally so you can just have that beautiful heart bouquet on your card if you want, because it die cuts perfectly around that. Okay, so I've got my sack all lined up and I'm going to do my ink blending on that. The colors for the sack are old paper and burnished corduroy, or brushed, oh my gosh, I can't read, brushed corduroy. And I'm going to start with old paper. I always pretty much start with my lighter color and then just use a tiny bit of the darker shade for like a shadow. Ink up here. And I'm just going to ink blend kind of a base here, real simple, just all over. Oops, I didn't get mine quite lined up well enough, did I? Oh no, it looks okay. Let me adjust it here. I just realized I didn't get this lined up as well as I could have. I was too busy talking, not paying attention to what I was doing. Okay, that's a little bit closer. Trying to make sure. I just noticed that the leaves in the stencil didn't quite match up with the leaves that I stamped. Brush corduroy, thank you. Okay, let's start with old paper. Just get some of that color down. Again, you can use brushes. I know sometimes these little tiny places can be tricky to get into with your foam blending tools. I don't really have a problem with it just because I kind of I have a lot of pressure. But if you find the brushes easier, definitely use those. They can definitely be more precise, and I'll use one later for one of our other cards. So really whatever is your preference. Now I'm moving on to brushed corduroy. And when I ink up this, I'm gonna try to only get it, well, make sure I get the ink kind of on the end. If I get it other places, that's okay, because I'm gonna angle it so I have a little bit more control, because I only want to get this color kind of here, because I'm just going to add shadow. I just want it down here and try to get it right here, kind of at the lip. That's what my goal is. So you can see when I ink up, I'm just going to touch only, let's see if I can hold it up, just a small amount of my tool here. Yes, I just learned about that Ranger blending tool the other day when I watched Simon's. I was like, oh, that's cool. That would be really helpful. So if you have those, you definitely can get those out. Or a small brush would work too. So I'm just going to ink up a little bit here and just blend the bottom. Hopefully you guys can see. I'm going to try to keep my hand out of the way. See how it creates a nice shadow there? Now I'm going to do the same thing up here, right at the top of the bow, but really we're trying to get that lip of the burlap sack. And please don't stress, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just a little bit of this different color really adds a lot of depth and shape, just a tiny bit. And even if it isn't in the right, the right spots, it's going to add a lot of interest just being there. That's pretty much it. And now I can remove my tape and put that to the side. Remove my mask. And there it goes, again, fitting perfectly. I love how it leaves that space for the bow. So you could go straight to ink blending the bow onto here, but we're gonna actually, because we have the die, we're gonna do it separate and add it on top because I think it adds a little bit more of dimension. So we're gonna have 3 more things we're gonna ink blend: our roses and our bow. But we're done with that. Now I'm gonna show you how to clean up real quick with stencils, or at least my favorite way to clean up stencils. I like to have a towel. This is definitely a well-used dirty towel. And I will place my stencil on top, and then I will use a chamois. You could use a baby cloth too. And then just wipe it off. Pretty simple, but what the towel does is, if you were to wipe it off, I'll do it on the mat so you can see. If I were to wipe it onto the mat, look what happens when I lift it up. Do you see all that dirty ink? That gets on the underside of your stencil and you don't really realize it. And then you place your stencil down to ink blend your next piece, and all that dirty stuff kind of gets transferred. So if you use a towel, the towel catches that. So it makes it a lot easier to clean up. Okay. And I'll do this one real quick, even though I'm done with him. Usually I don't clean up, but I'm gonna try to clean up today just so I don't get so disorganized and I can't figure out what I'm doing because I keep throwing everything to the side. That's definitely something I tend to do. Okay, so that is pretty much done. We're ready for our next bit of ink blending. And oh, I do want to mention that you might want to every once in a while stop and clean your tape. If you're like me, you're a little bit crazy and you reuse your painter's tape, you might want to stop. And I just put it on my water media mat. You could just stick it down to your work surface and just wipe it off a little bit, because that will sometimes have residual ink on there that's still kind of wet, and your blending tool can pick it up and maybe, you know, get some green in your roses where you don't want it or something like that. So something to be mindful of, and also dry it a little bit too. But always the safest thing is to get a new piece if you want to, which I don't blame you if you would. That would definitely ensure you didn't make any mistakes. So now we're going to ink blend the roses. You can get fairly close to your planter or your pot here, but you want to make sure you leave a little barrier there. You can relate to losing things. I know, I bet you can. It's just so quickly, everything starts to just spiral out of control. Every time I start thinking, this is the time I'm going to not do that, and then I do it again. So I'm going to go about right here. I think that's going to give me enough room to still die cut it the top cleanly. Okay. And our next 2 colors you're going to grab is, let me see here, Abandoned Coral and Barn Door. Abandoned Coral and Barn Door. I'm going to put some of these out of my way since I'm done with them. Yay! Even better. Why do you not stamp the roses first? I do not stamp the roses. That's a great question. I do not stamp the roses first. Let me grab the stamp set so I can show you. Because they are, actually the finished image might be better. You can see here the stamped part is the detail. And you can see the detail doesn't go all the way to the edge of the blended part. So I just find it easier because I know better how much space I'm working with the stencil. You could stamp it first and then stencil it, but I'm trying to be really conservative with my paper use here, and I know exactly how much space I need with the stencil. But if you prefer, you could definitely stamp it first and then ink blend. It's not you have to do one or the other, but that's why I chose to ink blend first. So now I'm going to, just so I can make sure I get everything fitting on there. And you might want to do it that way. Another point you might want to do ink blending first is if you have no desire to die cut it out, you want to do, you can get kind of, again, it's that positioning thing. You'll know exactly where the edges are, so you can get it centered better on your card front if that's something you want to do. Okay. So I'm gonna actually tape this down just so it doesn't move around on me, even though I could probably hold it pretty easily. And I'm gonna start with the Abandoned Coral. And I'm going to create a gradation here. So it's going to start up here being Abandoned Coral and then transition to Barn Door. So nice little gradation. Oh, thank you. Thank you for getting those skews. So I'm quickly ink blend this. And I chose Distress inks. I mean, the oxides are beautiful and you could definitely use those. But if you do oxides over your line, your stamped black line, it will kind of, because they're a bit opaque, you'll start to, you know, make that stamped black line kind of gray and soft and not quite as bold and crisp. The translucentness of the inks, I think, work really great for when you have a black outline. Okay, so I'm just gonna stop there. I think that's pretty good. Giving my little old antique table a workout here. Hear everything all creaking and cracking. And now I'm moving on to Barn Door. And if I'm ever going too fast, please don't hesitate to just say, hey, give me 5 minutes, or I'm not quite ready. I'll still try to remember to do check-ins too. Again, just creating a little gradation here. It adds a little bit more interest to it adds kind of shape and depth to these images. And it's so easy to do with stencils. That's the best part. It's just so easy to do. Gradations, especially larger gradations, are tricky to color with Copics or even whatever. Even if you're kind of watercoloring, they can be a little tricky to do to get a nice soft gradation. But with ink blending, pretty easy. And if there are any flaws, the detail layer in the roses are going to really mask them beautifully. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there and just see how we're doing. Okay, and remove that stencil, and there we have that beautiful base for our roses. And now we only have one more part to ink blend, which is our bow, which I'm going to just ink blend now. Now I'm going to grab the stamp set here so you can look. You could, let me put some paper behind it so you can see a little bit better. So the stamp set has the outline for the pot or the bag and the greenery, which we stamped, the detail layer for the roses, and then you also have the outline for the bow. And you could stamp the bow, and that little piece right there is for the center of the bow. You could stamp that in a color too, but you can also ink blend it. That's why I love this set. There's so many options. You can really shake it up. I'm not going to do, good morning. I'm not going to stamp it. I'm not going to stamp either of these. The heart sense would make, oh, that's a great idea. I never thought about clouds. That's a really cool idea. Yeah, it would. Or even like trees, right? Almost. I'm not going to stamp this just because I like the idea. I like the look. Let's see if I can grab this. Well, we'll use my actual card. I'm not going to stamp the outline here but I could, but I'm not going to because I like that balance. This one really unique thing about this stamp that I think is really cool. It has a kind of graphic look because the roses don't have that black outline. So you have that really kind of neat play of this almost like no line kind of images combined with this lined outline image. I just think that kind of has a really cool and unique look. So I chose not to. I'm not going to stamp the outline for the bow. You could, of course, if you want to, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go straight to ink blending the bow instead. So that's kind of fun, different ways to think about how to use the stencils, use the outlines, kind of play with the look. Okay, so let me grab my bow, and because I have red here, looks like I'm going to need to clean my stencil before I move on to my bow. So I'm just clean that real quick. And I'm getting things everywhere. Let's move some of this stuff out of the way. Keep an eye on our time. Okay, I need to move along. We're almost done though. Okay, so that one's done. Done cleaning it. Give it a little wipe with down or dry down with my towel too. And remove my bow. And hopefully I left just enough room here. If you didn't get quite enough room, I think that's enough. It is close. There we go. I think I can squeeze it right there at the top. If you don't want to try to squeeze this bow in here, you can definitely just grab a little scrap. You don't need much to ink blend it. Definitely you can grab a little scrap of white cardstock if you prefer. I'm going to squeeze it up here at the upper top. It's tight, but I think I can get it in there. I am going to make sure, I actually don't even need to worry about that little bit there because I don't need to have that white. But we'll use a couple pieces of tape to hold it down. Okay. Let's see. So the colors I'm using are going to be tumbled glass and broken china. Tumbled glass and broken china. Okay. Just trying to keep up with if there's any questions. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my lighter shade, which is the tumbled glass, and just ink blend the whole bow with that. As my base. Once I get that tumbled glass down, I'm going to move on to the broken china. And like before where we did the sack, I'm going to try to only get that really up here at the upper top of my tool. So just kind of ink up that a little bit. Again, you can use brushes or the little mini blending tools if you have those instead. And I'm going to apply this broken china here on the edges and then in the center a little bit. Just think these add a lot. So that's pretty much it. And then a little bit in the middle. Just a tiny bit in the middle. Don't want to lose too much of my lights, that's for sure. So I want to be careful of that. And once you finish that part, you have this tiny part here labeled D for the very center to do that kind of like the knot, a little bit darker. So I'm going to place that down. Just going to hold it in place and just do broken china, but do it a little bit more heavy-handed so it's darker this time. And I think that's all I need to do. And there you go, there's that bow. So pretty. So now we just need to stamp our detail for the roses. So I'm going to grab my Misty again. Put these things aside. For the roses, I'm going to stamp it in colored ink. You could stamp it in black if you want, but again, I kind of like that. If you start stamped in black, it would kind of have that, take away that no line image look. But for stamping it, I'm going to use Barn Door and Fired Brick. So slightly darker reds. I did use the Barn Door earlier down here, but we're going to kind of do a stamping with gradation. Okay. And let me grab my Misty. Now, if you were using like Distress Oxides and or you're just not happy with your black line, you could totally stamp this again, because I haven't moved it at all in my Misty. I just pop it in and stamp it again after I've blended it. Because sometimes when you blend, you find that you lose kind of which black ink did I use? I used Memento Tuxedo Black. That's what I used in the beginning. I use that because it dries fast. Because I don't like to wait around at all for my ink to dry. I want to go from stamping to ink blending right away. So that's what I used. Okay. But if you felt like you wanted to enhance that stamped line after you ink blended it, you can definitely stamp it again. I'm happy with it. I'm just going to leave it as is. So I'm going to remove that stamp. And then I'm going to grab the details for the roses. Oop. And I'm going to center this. Now this is pretty forgiving. You definitely don't need a Misty to do these layers. They're pretty easy to line up because you would stamp this first, which could be anywhere, and then ink blend. And to stamp this after you ink blend, if you choose to do it that way, you can pretty much eyeball it with, I actually did it, let me show you real quick. I just did it yesterday freehand. I just stamped it without a Misty just to make sure I could do it. But now I can't find anything. Oh, here it is. The only downfall is it won't be as intense. But here's the one I made yesterday where I just hand stamped it. I just used my acrylic block. So you can definitely do it that way. You don't need a Misty to use this set. It's not one of those kind of layering sets where you kind of really need a Misty. But they do make it easier. So I'm just going to line it up. Now when you line this up, you want to make sure that all the details of your roses are on the stencil area or the ink blended area. That's pretty much the only thing you need to worry about. You wouldn't want it kind of off like that. Just make sure it's kind of lined up. Nothing is outside that ink blended area. Okay, I think that's good. So now pick it up with my Misty, and I'm going to ink it up with two colors. I'm going to start with my lighter color, which is the Barn Door, and just kind of ink up the upper half, kind of with that color. Maybe a little bit more, maybe like 2/3, so I can kind of make a little gradation. And then Fired Brick. And then I'll stamp it. And I'll stamp it one more time just to make everything more intense, but you can already see those details pop and it just adds so much more depth. I'm going to ink it up exactly the same way with my Barn Door and Fired Brick. And this is just to make all the details a little bit more crisp. You definitely don't have to use Distress inks for this part. You could use whatever ink you prefer for the stamping, whatever ink you like for stamping. I just try to keep it consistent because this is what you guys already got out if you're following along. Okay, and I think I'll do one more time and then I'll be done. And then we'll be ready to die cut everything out. All right. Oh, so pretty. Oh my gosh. Look at that. Ba ba boom. So pretty. I love how everything just pops with that detail layer. So now I'm going to die cut these all out with that matching die. So I'm using the Rose Bouquet matching die. That's included in your kit, so you should have that. It looks like this here. 3 dies. I'm gonna die cut the roses out first because I did do everything really close together, so I can't do it all at once. So I'll just line that up. Got little pieces of tape to hold it in place. Ooh, I'm frozen here. Let's make sure I'm not frozen for you guys. Okay, not frozen. Okay, good. Okay. And I'll set that. I'm just gonna use a couple pieces of micropore tape, whatever low tack tape, whatever tape you want to use. Purple tape works great too. This is just what I had close by. And I'll run that through my die cutting machine. Okay. That off, cuts out perfectly. Look at how pretty that is. And it would be pretty just even with just this and the bow on a card, I think would be really pretty. Now I'm gonna do these two. And the bow. There we go. And I'm gonna die cut those out. Okay. And now we have all our pieces. So like I mentioned before that the sack here and the greenery die doesn't cut it out completely, which is going to work out really well for this because it's going to leave that upper lip here. We're just going to snip a little bit, and that's going to be a great place to attach our roses to. So I'll hold it like this, you can see. See there, it doesn't cut out that part, but we're just going to snip it right here, and then this white part here is where we'll attach our rose bouquet. There we go. Toss that. Now you can put this all together, so you get some liquid glue out and attach these. Start by attaching the roses to the greenery, and then you can put the bow on top. Grab my liquid glue, a tiny bit. Stick that down, and then I'll just add a tiny bit of glue to that and stick that right on top. Oops. Hey, you stay stuck. Can we assemble later? Yeah, you can definitely assemble later, totally. The only thing we have left to do is stamp our sentiment. I'm gonna do that really quick. I'm gonna grab my Misty. I like to have this arranged just so I can make sure I leave enough space, but you can just do it. You can just kind of eyeball it just with that sack, kind of stamp that. So I'm gonna stamp that real quick. Clean this up just a hair. And I'm kind of assembling my sentiment with the stamp set. If I figure out where I left it. Well, we're going to use this one because I can't find it. I'm going to use the Just For You. You can definitely do the You Are Loved too. I think both of them fit there pretty good. And again, so I can use that to kind of help make sure I can have that centered and still save enough room for my sentiment. Oops. Let's make sure I'm doing this a little bit more on screen so you guys can see. I think that looks good. Oop. Make sure we're nice and straight and still in the corner. Great, and I'm just going to use more of my Memento Tuxedo Black because that's the black ink I have out. And I will stamp this a couple of times just to make sure it's nice and bold and crisp. And then we will move on to card number 2. And I've got to get it going a little bit faster here. I always pack too much. Okay, so that one's done. And I'm going to just use a couple pieces of foam tape real quick and finish that card up. So if you want to get yourself ready for the next card, if you're done or you just want to set that aside because the last bit is pretty obvious, you can get out the Lighthouse Stencil-n-Stamp set. That's really all you need, and a card base, a white card base from the Cards and Envelope pack. That would be awesome. I'm just going to put a couple pieces of foam tape here. And I'm going to call that done. Okay, so while I'm getting that stuck, and if you haven't already clipped your Lighthouse stencil part, separated the masks and everything, you don't need to separate all of them for our next card. So if you want to hold up, let me tell you which ones you do have to cut. But there's our finished rose bouquet card. Okay, reach here to get my stuff. And we're going to move on to the Lighthouse Stamp and Stencil set. Our Stencil-n-Stamp set. So this set comes with the Lighthouse Stamp set and the Lighthouse stencil, which is behind. You can see on the back here kind of what that stencil looks like. All these openings are the masks or the negatives, which are included. Yes, the Lighthouse is part of our February release, our Hope release. So this hasn't released yet, but it is available. You can order it now. A quick clean. So if you haven't clipped your stencil yet, the only ones you need for this card anyways, the only ones you need to trim out are this one here and this here. That's the only stencils we're going to use for today's scene that we're creating with this set. So I'm going to trim that. But like I was saying before, I love this set because it includes all these additional parts. Like here for the windows, so you can ink blend those. Another piece here for your kind of landscape, your scenes. And another piece here. And of course you can do your red stripes on your lighthouse if you want to. So I just think it's a really great set for building scenes. It has a lot of these components that allow you to make different, you're not confined to only an A2 kind of scene. You can even kind of build a slimline scene too. Oh, thank you for correcting it. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with a card base. Let me grab that. And the stencils. That's what we're going to start with. And you do need some painter's tape, again. I'm just going to do a quick clean here so I don't get too confused. these things out of the way. Okay, so for the card base, you may want to, oh look, I got it dirty. Oh well, we'll use the back side. For the card base, you might want to roll a little piece of tape to keep it shut. It is staying shut pretty nicely on its own, but sometimes it bothers you when it kind of pops up and it's not perfectly flat. So you might want to roll a little piece of tape and pop it in there. That makes it easier for you, kind of stay shut. Okay. And we're going to start by ink blending this kind of light ray here. I like to kind of have it go off the top. I have my fold over here on the left. And you can use the stamp set if you want to kind of help you figure out where exactly. I want this part here, the end of it, to be behind the lights here, so I can kind of figure out where the position needs to go. Something like that. It's totally fine. So once I got that figured out, I'm going to kind of tape this in place. Catch in there. I think that looks good. And nice thing about trimming those masks out now, you don't have to worry so much about getting, you have to worry about here for ink blending. You don't want to get that part, so you might want to tape that off. You don't have to worry so much about getting other parts of your card base dirty. Okay. And I'm gonna switch over to oxides this time, just because we have a lot of ink blending to do. This is the card we're creating, so we have lots of big areas of ink blending, and the oxides are just a little bit easier to ink blend. And we don't have any outlines to really worry about kind of making our blacks kind of gray. So first color you're going to need to grab is Mustard Seed Distress Oxide. So I'm going to give you a little second to grab that and your blending tool. And also Spiced Marmalade. I forgot we need that one as well. Okay. And we're simply going to ink blend a little gradation here, starting with mustard seed and blending out till it's almost pretty much the white of the paper. And then we'll do a little bit of spiced marmalade just to, again, kind of make it a little bit more interesting with that second color. Starting with mustard seed, inking up. I'm going to tap off the excess here onto my mat. I think it's on the right. Which side is the opening? The opening's on the right, the fold is on the left. There we go. Again, creating that gradation, so I want it a little bit darker here, fading out. And I think that's where I'm going to call it done. Now I'm going to move right on to Spiced Marmalade. Ink up, tap off some of the excess. And I'm going to ink blend just a tiny bit here. Warm it up a little bit, make that gradation a little bit more. And you might find that if after you do that you want a little bit more yellow, you can go back to mustard seed and add a little bit more yellow if you want. But I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna call that dunsies. And set those aside. We're actually done with Spiced Marmalade. We won't use that again. The next colors we're gonna use, so you guys can get that ready while I do a little cleanup here, is we're going to do the sky, which is going to be Spiced Marmalade again, picked raspberry, peacock feathers, and blueprint sketch. So I'm going to move this away. Probably don't have to clean, but I'm going to do it just to be careful, just to be so I don't somehow touch it and get ink on my fingers and then get ink somewhere else, because I would definitely do that somewhere I don't want it. I'm just gonna quickly wipe that down. And we're now going to blend the sky. But before we can start blending the sky, we do need to kind of create that horizon line or mask off that horizon line. And to do that, you could use the stencil. You can just use the edge of the stencil here. You can do it that way. I think that's what I'm going to do. You can also use a piece of masking tape. You're going to either way have to use, or not masking tape, painter's tape. Either way, you're going to have to use tape to kind of either hold the stencil in place or just plain tape off a piece, but those are kind of the ways that I like to do it. So I think that's about, I don't know, that's probably about a quarter up on my card. So about a little, maybe about an inch. I think that's good. That's all I need to do. And then we need to also protect our beam of light. And that's where these masks that are included, that you kind of snip and you want to save, come in handy big time. So you would want to place that over. Now you can tape it down here. Once you get it in place, you can do it that way. I think the best way though is to spray it with some pixie spray if you have that. So I'm going to grab my pixie spray. This is like a repositional adhesive that you can put on your back of your stencils, and that's just going to keep that guy in place a little bit more than if you were to just put a piece of tape here to hold it down. So I'm going to go spray this to the side real quick. Just a tiny bit is all you need. You can do it without the pixie spray, so if you don't have the pixie spray, don't stress. You can do it without it. You don't need it. But I do think it does make it a little bit easier. You just might have to hold it. If you don't have pixie spray, you might have to, when you start ink blending and you get to that top, how do you clean off pixie spray? I just leave it on. I actually have never cleaned it off, but I suspect, gosh, I don't even know if I should say, I suspect if you have Goo Gone, that could get off the residue of pixie spray if that is something that bothers you, or at least on your stencil, it'll come off your stencil. But I can't say for sure because I've never even tried that. I've never actually tried to remove it. I kind of just leave it on because it makes that stencil, the backside, a little tacky, and I kind of like that because it just holds a little bit better to my paper. This does not look like that's stuck down, so I gotta do a better job there. I think that's okay. We're not crooked, are we? Okay, we're good. Okay, so I'm going to start ink blending now. Got that in place. I'm going to give that a little tape there just for extra insurance. But like I was saying, if you don't have pixie spray, you might, when you have to do your ink blending here, kind of hold this down while you ink blend. We're going to start with mustard seed, our lightest color. Yeah, I love the pixie spray. I definitely think it's a very helpful product. I would recommend it 100%. It's especially essential for detail stencils. It's really useful there. Okay. I'm going to just start ink blending. So the order I'm going to do is light to dark here. So it's going to be mustard seed, picked raspberry, peacock feathers, and then a tiny bit of blueprint sketch at the top. Undo is a really good adhesive remover. Oh, cool. I've never tried that. I'll have to try that. I'm actually a little bit, to be honest, I'm a little scared to use Goo Gone because it's so intense on my stencils. That's why I've never tried it. I usually just leave this, I bet you it would even come off with just water. It's not super strong adhesive or anything. Water, soap and water. Can you bring the finished card? Yes, I can. Let me see where it is. I'll put it right here on the side so you guys can kind of follow along. And then here you can see that orange, that's just from overlapping the picked raspberry and the mustard seed. Ooh, ooh, that's handy. I didn't know you could do that with that. Undo 2 papers stuck together? I would have thought that was a lost cause. That's cool. So many cool things. Crafters know the best stuff. I just left the glue on and put the stencil in a clear bag rather than, oh, that's helpful. That's good. Yeah, I've never taken this, the adhesive off either. I just left it on. Again, I kind of like it because it makes it a little tacky and almost keeps it, the next time I use it, kind of keeps it even, makes it work a little bit better the next time. Just keeps it in place. That's the word I'm trying to find. Now we're on to picked raspberry. Keep my eye on the time here, 9:12, okay. Oh no. Took too long. I'm taking too long. We might have to do less cats. Oh no, I feel bad. I'm gonna really try to speed things up here. And then I will finish with blueprint sketch. Now I kind of do, when I ink blend, I'll do like a base. Let's see if I can get these colors, ink blend and still have the card visible, which is, I'm having a hard time doing that. I take up too much space. Oops, that's the wrong one. Ah! So I'd like to do a base first with all my colors, and then I'll go back over them a second time to kind of improve the gradation and also intensify the colors. That's just how I like to do it. Try to hurry along here. I also like how that pink, or that picked raspberry, when it overlaps the peacock feathers, it kind of makes almost a purple, which I think is really pretty. Love how they mix. And then I'll do a little bit more of mustard seed. Hopefully I didn't mess it up because I dipped it into the blueprint sketch. Ooh, that wasn't so good. Okay. All right, I think I'm just about done there. Hope you guys are done with your gradations too. Now we're gonna move on to the water. For the water, all we need is the blueprint sketch and the picked raspberries again. I'm sorry, blueprint sketch and the peacock feathers for the water. Move that off. Quickly wipe that down. You can remove the mask for the beam of light as well. Do a quick clean. So I'm going to use that edge again for my water. So again, mask off that horizon line and kind of protect the sky. I might turn it this way this time when I ink blend. I like to kind of come in from the right if I can. Kind of hold that down better this time, even though it didn't, I did fine. Okay. And for the water, again, it's just the peacock feathers and the blueprint sketch. I'm going to start with peacock feathers. that all ink blended. All right, then I'll move on to Blueprint Sketch. Again, creating that little gradation. You can be pretty heavy-handed here. It's just a small area and it goes really quick. I think that does it. Now I made it a real good mess. Okay, let's remove the mask and there we go. So you do want to be careful because those oxides can come off with your fingers. Let's see. Okay, good. And you can use a tip that I saw from Christina Werner is you can use painter's tape. If you do find that you need to touch, you know, kind of hold it down, just stick it to your fingers, and now you can touch your card front if you need to kind of move it around. That might be helpful for when we stamp our images, which is the next thing we're gonna do. I'm gonna actually move my mat aside real quick, and we can grab, I'm gonna stamp this with my Misty. Again, you don't have to. Oh, actually we should do our land real quick. We'll do one more ink blending. It's our last ink blending. We're gonna ink blend our land here real quick. So I do need to clean this a little bit. It's a little dirty. Let me give it a quick wipe down. And we're gonna use your main stencil. So the large one. We're not gonna use the mask for the, we're gonna use this right here to ink blend our little island. So I'm gonna position it like that. I'm gonna just tape it down here, and you're gonna grab black soot. Nice dark, kind of creating like a silhouette. I'm creating that land right there. Okay, so gonna grab my blending tools and just quickly ink blend that island. Be careful here of this edge. You may want to tape that off. I'm just gonna kind of hold it. So I've got that tape stuck to my finger so I don't get any finger marks here with my oxides. Oops. Kind of hold that in place better. There we go. And just ink blend that island. Okay, that's it. And we are almost done with this, believe it or not. All we have left to do is stamp all of our images. So that goes really fast. So now I'm gonna grab my Misty. We'll go really fast, especially if you have a Misty. You can kind of do it all at once. Okay. And we're gonna use black soot again for all of our images. Gonna put this kind of up here. Make sure we're in the corner. I'm gonna grab the lighthouse, one of these boats. You can use any sentiment you like, really. Anything will kind of fit in there, or you can make fit. And all the birds. So let me just put them out there. The only one that you wanna be careful about how you position is the lighthouse. And you may, depending on how you got it, like I did here, see how that's kind of going below the land. If I want to have those windows kind of at that bright part. Let's see if I can hold up so you can see. So I kind of want those windows right there. And you can see how it kind of goes past the land. I'm going to have to put a little piece of tape here to protect my water when I stamp it. That's the only thing I have to be careful about. So I'll put a little piece of masking tape down there, but I'll do that after I get all of my stamps in place. Do the wishing you piece. Do a little grass and my birds. I'll put those there. I love that there's two kind of sets of birds. It really makes it easy to kind of balance your scene. That, and then one of my boats, like right there. So those are all of the scene stamps I'm going to use for this. Okay, I think that looks good. So now I'm going to pick everything up. Perfect. Put that tape down here just to protect that land. Stay stuck, please. And then I'll ink everything up with, well, I guess I have to use a little different piece of tape. Use micro pour tape then. And I'm going to ink everything up with Distress Oxide. Gonna make room here. Maybe I'll use a little piece of paper because my ink is too wet there. Nothing's sticking. My Distress ink's too wet, so I'm gonna use a little piece of paper instead. Or a little, I know, a little like Post-it note will work. Let me grab that real quick. Okay, I just found a little piece of paper that should work. Here we go. Jeez Louise. Okay, that'll work. And if I don't get a great or perfect impression the first time, I have my MISTI, which is handy so I can stamp it again. But this will actually complete the card once we get all of our images stamped. There you go. Oh my gosh, it's looking good already. Everything's lined up good. I just gotta stamp it another time so everything is solid. I love the way that silhouette looks against all that ink blending. I just think it's so pretty. And I think this will be the last one I have to do. Make sure we're in the corner still. Perfect. Beautiful. Yeah, I just used a little piece of paper because I couldn't get the tape to stick because my ink was still wet down there. Awesome. And if this bothers you, this little, I think that looks kind of cool actually, but if that bothers you, that you can see that the ink layered on top, you can fix it really easy, which I'll do really quick. Definitely don't have to. It's just, you just line it back up. And then you ink blend again. with your black soot, and that will totally get rid of that. If that kind of overlapping, that look bothers you, you just be really heavy-handed here with the black soot. It's like 2 layers, and that really will help. Yeah, there you go. So cool. So fun to try different color combos, I think, for your sunsets. You could do instead of like a sunset, more of a sunrise kind of color combo or idea. Really, really fun. So let's move on. Check the time here. Let's move on to our last card, which is the Birthday Kitties stencil. That's what you're going to need. And your JJ Rainbows paper pad. And the Birthday Kitties matching die. So there's no stamp set here. You do have a little, I've tucked mine in the back here. You should have a little sentiment that's been cut out for you. This is from the, I believe it's the, my brain is going blank here, the Possum sentiment set. I didn't write it down. But these are not released yet. These are going to be coming out, or these products here, as well as the stamp set used for this sentiment, will be out in our March release. So these are coming out soon. And these make the cutest little kitties. Let me show them to you. Look at how cute they are. And this one stencil will make both, or all 3 of these kitties, including a little present, the balloons, all of that. So let's get started so I can kind of walk you through that. And the matching dies will cut them out perfectly. You do need, this has already been released already though. Birthday Kitties in March, yes. This is the first look. Yes, this is brand new. We haven't shown this at all. You will need some white cardstock. An A2 panel really size is all you need. Again, it doesn't have to be this size. It's just, if you have this cut out and ready to go, that'll work. But you just need some white cardstock. I'm going to grab my mat again. Move these things to the side. These do have a couple pieces that you need to trim out or separate. It's just their little heads here and their body there. Those are the only pieces you need to trim with your scissors, if you haven't done that already. I'm going to try to get things back in place here. Okay, and I'm going to put the dies aside. I'm going to keep this out so you can kind of see the colors. I have a bunch of distress inks picked out for this. I kind of picked out a rainbow, but I'll do them one at a time so you guys don't get confused. The first 2 colors you need are Weathered Wood and Iced Spruce. We're going to do this kitty right here, so the gray kitty. And I just have to find my stencil. Well, we'll just use this, I guess. I can't find it. But I'll use the original one. This one right here. So the gray kitty, yeah, you got the teaser. So the gray kitty has the little head here. So right here, this section here, and that's the gray kitty's little face. I'm going to separate this real quick, and we're going to start with this part here. Okay. And I'm going to kind of ink blend her over to the upper left And I'm starting with weathered wood. Yeah, it's so awesome. The price point is amazing. To be able to make all these kitties on one stencil, really, really cool. Now the only thing we want to be careful here is we don't want to ink blend that. There's going to be a lot of little masking here, just so we can get all the sections different colors. I'm going to want to maybe mask off that little topper for the hat. So you might want to have just a bunch of little pieces of tape. I kind of find that's helpful just to have a couple, like 3 or 4 little pieces of painter's tape ready to go and kind of position wherever you want to mask off. But we really don't need to worry about too much besides that little topper for the hat to start with. And then I'm just going to ink blend this with the whole head and body with weathered wood. Okay, 9:30. Keep an eye on the time here. I think we can do it, but it's going to be close. So just get that base there. And then of course, because I love little gradations, I'm gonna do a little bit of this iced spruce. Do it right here at the chin and kind of down here at the tail. You can see a little bit darker there. Totally could skip this step if you don't want to bother with the gradations. Again, I like the little bit of depth that they add, but definitely not necessary. Just gonna get a little bit of that iced spruce at the end of my blending tool. And just ink blend a little gradation there. Perfect. And that part of the stencil is actually done. I'm not going to move on to right here where you see the kind of her dress, her paws, her ears, and the top of her hat. I'm actually going to move right onto that and line that up. This one we're going to require more masking just because I want that hat and shirt to be a different color. So again, I'm going to grab those little pieces of tape, kind of place those down. But leave the little paws. So I'm keep covering up the shirt and the hat. The shirt and the hat is what I'm going to mask off. I find like a little corner, if you just use like a little corner, one of those little pieces of tape, can kind of fit it in there pretty good. And we're just going to use that iced spruce again. Be a little bit more heavy-handed here. And that's going to make her little paws a little bit darker. And that's it. Peel off those masks. I'm just holding it with my hand. I'm just going to keep it in place here. And I'm going to quickly move on to, I'm just debating whether I need to clean it. I don't think it's too bad. I'm going to leave the stencil as is. I'm not going to bother to clean it. I think it's okay. I'm going to move on to my colors. So for the hat, I'm gonna start to move on to my rainbow colors. So all their clothing and their hats and presents are gonna be kind of a rainbow. And my blue in that rainbow is going to be Mermaid Lagoon. Try to see how we're doing here. Yeah, we're gonna go completely finished with this cat. So you'll get the idea of how this works. Lost my little blender thing. I do need to mask off these little ears though. And if you had little blending tools, you might not even need to mask at all. So, because you can be more precise. But I'm using these foam tools, which aren't as precise. Okay, and For the purple, I'm going to use Dusty Concord. But the rainbow colors are going to be repeated throughout the critters. It's only their bodies. And I probably should mask that off a little bit too. Her little feet. Just to be careful. Make one side a little bit darker so it looks like a shadow, if I can. Okay, that. Remove the stencil, and now you can see. Look at how cute. Already she looks so cute. I'm gonna pause here and just clean this for a second because it's getting kind of dirty. Grab my chamois. There we go. And now we're going to go back to the stencil here for the little topper for her hat. And then we are pretty much done with her. We just have to do her little face. But I will show you a trick for that face. So to line up that ball for the hat, I'm just going to line back up the body here. So make sure that tail and the head are kind of lined back up again with what I originally ink blended. Put a mask here over her face. And protect those ears. And I'll do that with my pink, which is worn lipstick. So far in our rainbow, we've had a purple and a blue, and now a pink. And that goes really fast too, because it's just that tiny little ball for the top. And because we're die cutting these out, you don't have to worry so much about like getting a little bit of ink here and there, because we're gonna die cut that out. You won't see that later. So that's it. So the next thing to do would be her face. But to make sure that you get that face perfectly in the right spot so that it can go along with the matching dies, I recommend die cutting it out first. That's a big helper. Clean image with the stamps. Clean image with the stamps. Well, you don't have to worry about this part here. That's not going to. Clean image with this. Clean image with the stamps, with the stencil maybe. So now I'm going to die cut this out. I'll show this up so you can see, but I'm not worried about this here because I'm going to die cut that out. So I'll just line this up. And I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. And this might be handy too, to kind of thinking this way of die cutting first. For other cats, not just their faces, I recommend die cutting before you do any of their faces and these balloon lines, but also, or strings. I also recommend it maybe for the present and getting the alignment of these balloons perfectly as well. I couldn't even find my platform. Jeez Louise. Okay, I'm just going to use a little piece of tape to kind of hold it in place while I run it through my die cutting machine. Great. Okay. And there is that little kitty. Super cute. And so now you can see exactly where you need to ink blend or draw in that face. So let me grab the stencil. So there's two ways to do the face. Grab it here. So this little face right here in the upper right goes with her little face. Kind of line it up with the die cut. And you can use a marker and kind of draw in, kind of trace in. I'll do that completely so you can see what that looks like. I'm just using a fine point Sharpie. You could use a pencil first if you want to, and then do the Sharpie and remove the stencil. Oops. Got sloppy. And that might be good so we avoid doing that. You can see her little face. Oh my gosh, how cute. And another way to do it is you can also just ink blend it, which I'll show you that too. But you do need like a fine blending tool like this, something like that, to get into those teeny tiny, because they're teeny tiny little openings. I'm just going to do it right on top. And I'm going to use black soot here. But both options, I think, yield really, really pretty results. So I'm just going to ink blend that so you can see how that looks as well. So pretty much the same thing, just a little bit like wider, I feel like. But I think both are really cute. And that completes that little kitty. She's done. Let's move on to another kitty. Let's do this guy right here. Okay. He's going to be pretty similar, but there's little tricks to him to make him go really smoothly. Grab my stencil. I'm going to start with this one here, which started with the head. Actually pull that out. And I'm going to fit him up here, in this upper part up here. And the colors I'm starting for him, we're going to use antique linen to do his belly. So since we're only doing his belly here, you really only need to ink blend right here. And I really recommend only ink blending here. Try to avoid getting up here in the head because that kind of conflicts with the bow later. So you can even put a little piece of tape here if you want to really kind of avoid it. But all we need is just a little bit of that antique linen for the belly. That's all we need to do here. And you might want to blend all the way down to the feet just for aligning the next layer. That might make aligning the next layer a little bit easier. So I'm going to ink blend all the way down to his tail and feet just to make sure right when I align the rest of his body later, it's nice and easy. There we go. So we just did that lower half of him. Now we're going to move on to this kitty here. This is perfect for people who don't like to color. I love that. And it's critters too, which you often don't see methods for not coloring critters very often. Okay, so I got this next. You can see I lined up the next part of the body. I wonder if I can zoom in here. No, I cannot. Let me adjust my camera just a second. Oops, let's not do it like that though. Okay, get a little bit closer because it's this detail stuff. There we go. And the next color I'm going to do is tea dye. They're kind of creating like this brown kitty here. And I'm not going to mask anything off here. I don't really need to. Oop. I do need to have the foam stuck to my blending tool though. But I'm just going to hold it in place. And I'm going to ink blend the whole thing lightly with tea dye. You can see this part here is protecting that belly. Whole thing lightly with the tea dye. Blend that head too. And then I'm gonna go a little bit more heavy-handed with the tea dye at the top of his head and the bottom of his feet. Just again, creating those gradations because I really like those. I think they add so much. And if you feel like this is a little off, the color's a little off from his belly because we did a base of antique linen, you can always go over with antique linen here. Kind of make it all kind of the same tone. Boom. Done. That easy. And there's that cute little kitty with that cute belly. Love it. So now we have just this present left. And this is where I recommend die cutting at this point. You could ink blend the present. You can kind of see it pretty well. You can line up the present stencils here. There's this present and the bow. Oh, we have his little hat. Well, do you have to do, we can do, but I will go ahead and die cut it actually even still. I can die cut it even without that. So this is where I would recommend die cutting it because it's just going to be easier to get the alignment of the hat and the face and that present perfectly if you die cut it first. And you could die cut all of these first if you want to. Don't do any ink blending and then and die cut it and then ink blend. But I do think it's a little bit easier to have something to hold on to for as long as you can. That's why I wait. But if you want to kind of simplify the process and just have one rule, you could definitely do it that way. Is just die cut it first and then do all your ink blending. That's definitely an option. Okay, I got that die center. I'm gonna run it through my die cutting machine. There we go. Whoop! I do need that little critter. There she is. And now we get to do the hat. The hat and the present, and I'll finish with the face. How are we doing on time? 10 minutes. Ah! Okay. Line up this one here so you can see the present lines up. And then you'll get that little hat line up too. You want to get both of those lined up together. That looks good. There we go. And we're going to, let's see, what did I use last time? Okay, so more of the blue, more of the Mermaid Lagoon. I'm going to tape off the hat just so I don't accidentally get any. I should probably use my little blue painter's tape. Tape off the hat so I don't get any of that blue there. And just quickly ink blend that present. Of course, you could use, you might want to watch out for that little paw there too. There. Now we're good. And ink blend that little present. And that's done. And for the hat, I'm just going to grab my green, sorry, bumped the camera, which is Twisted Citron. Done. And then all we have left is that little ball, which is back with that very first kitty. So you line that back up with what you've already ink blended. Doesn't have to be perfect. You really just need to get that ball kind of centered on the die cut. And I'm going to grab my yellow now, which is Squeeze Lemonade. I picked these colors because of rainbow, and also they go pretty well with the JJ's rainbow paper pad that we gave you. These colors pretty well match the colors in that paper pad. Quickly ink blend that little topper there. And now all we have left to do actually is that bow, which is right next to that little topper. So I'll line that up. The birthday kitties are not available yet, which might be why they haven't shown up yet. They're part of our March release. So they are brand new. This is like a teaser. Coming soon. And what am I going to do for the bow? I'm going to do more Twisted Citron. Really can be any color though, whatever color you want. And that's it. There you go. And now all we have to do is the little face. I did get a little bit of green here where I didn't want it, so I'm just going to use a sand eraser to get that off, which comes off perfectly. And then we'll move on to the little face, which is down here. That's his little face. So again, there's two ways to do that. You can do the trace it with a pencil and then do a marker over it, or you can just ink blend it, which is what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to ink blend with black soot. With a little brush. You definitely need something fine like a brush to get into those little spots. Though that's the only thing if you're going to ink blend. I have the price. Do I have the prices here? I'm sure Sunshine or Nina can help you with those prices. I don't think I have them right here. I don't have them here in front of me. And that's a little kitty. Oh my gosh, look at how cute he is. So he's all done. So we got 2 kitties done. 1 more to go. We may not get it done. 6 minutes. Oh, it's not looking too good. But I do want to kind of go over this last kitty though real quick. Oh, great. So if you build your shopping cart, the prices will show up. Awesome. So we're going to start with the body. I do need to wipe down, unfortunately. I've got too much ink on here. I can't keep going. I do need to stop and clean. I wonder, can I go a couple minutes over? Is that allowed? Can I do that? To kind of show this last kitty all the way? I don't know. There's another class after us, though. I know that much. So probably not. They are cute. I'm glad you like them. I think they're so cute. So the only thing you need to know about the kitty with the balloons is that you want to save some space here for those balloons. You can kind of see that this balloon, it's lined up right here with this kitty. So you got an idea, and you know that there's another balloon here. I can go over. Okay, great. I hope that's sure is for me that I can go over a little bit, because I would like to at least finish this kitty if I can get him done. Okay, so I have plenty of room down here. I can just tell I have plenty of room, so I'm not worried about it. I'm going to start. Oh, is it for an hour? Okay, great. So a little time. Okay, great. Phew, that's awesome. Wonderful. I don't mind staying if you guys don't mind staying. I would like to finish if we can. We're close. We're on home stretch here. So for this kitty, I'm going to mask off that balloon and that topper of the hat. Grab some of my little pieces of that blue painter's tape that I ripped in the beginning. Just kind of place them down. And I'm not worried about if I get a little bit of ink over here because that's all going to be die cut out. I just want to make sure I keep kind of around here clean. I'm going to start with Wild Honey for this kitty and ink blend his whole... Oh, that's so nice. I'm surprised you're not tired of me because I talked a lot. Oh no, she can't put her in her cart. I'm sure they'll help her. I'm sure they'll help you, Brookie. And I'm just ink blending this with Wild Honey all over. Oh, great. Thank you. So after I've ink blended the body, I'm going to ink blend the top to make a gradation. Don't have to do this again. I love those gradations. I think they're so cool, and I think they're like a cheat for creating almost a Copic colored look. So a little gradation there, the same color. And now I'm going to remove the masks here. And you could go straight into ink blending one of these two, but I think I got too much ink on here, so I do think I need to stop and clean that. Oops, I'm so sorry. Sorry, I bumped the camera. Keep bumping the camera. Keep putting things out of reach. So I'm gonna stop and clean that just for a second. And let's just go ahead and get that balloon and top out of the way. Even though we haven't quite finished the kitty, I'm gonna put this on screen again so you guys can kind of see what we're doing. I keep forgetting that. So I'm going to line that back up again, and I'm going to just go ahead and do the topper for the hat. And the topper for the hat is I'm doing that purple, which again is Dusty Concord. And again, I just picked those colors because they kind of match I thought they matched well with the colors in the JJ Rainbows paper pad. What color is the last kitty? The last kitty is first is Wild Honey, and then we'll do the stripes in Ripe Persimmon, but I haven't gotten to the stripes yet. So I first all was just Wild Honey for that first layer for the kitty. So now I'm just gonna do a real quick little Dusty Concord for that topper. And we've used this a couple times already. We used it on that kitty's shirt. And now I can do the balloon. I don't think I need to mask anything off here on screen. Okay, I'm just running out of space. Okay, the next one is Blue Lagoon, and let me find the mermaid or Wild Honey. So this is what I've used so far on this kitty. Next color I'm going to use is this. I hope that helps. I know there's a lot of colors. That's just because I went crazy and did rainbow. I could have used fewer colors, but I love to use lots of colors. So this is Mermaid. I guess I have to also show you the lid, huh? That probably would help. Where are you gonna go, lid? Here, we'll squeeze you there. So this is Mermaid Lagoon. I'm just gonna do this balloon here. If I can, get one side a little darker. Thanks. Who doesn't love rainbows, right? Though, who doesn't? They're irresistible. All right, there we go. So for that right here, we did the kitty in Wild Honey, and then the little topper in Dusty Concord, and then the balloon, first balloon in Mermaid Lagoon. Okay, those are over there now. Now it's time for stripes. So I'm gonna grab these right here are your stripes for your kitty. These are the parts that are gonna color the tail. Maybe I should turn it this way. The tail, the back stripes, can see here, and around the face, the markings on the face. And we're gonna use Ripe Persimmon for that. Should have my rainbow over here. That would be really clever, but I don't want to get too confusing right now. And I think I'm fine. I don't think I need to clean. Everything's kind of out of the way. We'll move these over here. And let's get that lined up. There you go. Okay, so here I want to warn you, because this is where I made a mistake. How do you know which part belongs to which item? They're really close together. That helps you. You could at home take a marker and circle the parts that go together. They're kind of like all of this corner here goes to this kitty here. Up here you have this corner here. And then down here, you kind of have this lower third. Okay, I just cleaned it a little bit. Just because I touched it and got ink all over my fingers. Okay, so now that I lined it up, I do want to point out, you want to be careful right here. So because there's nothing here to ink, you know, there's no open areas to ink blend, you kind of think, oh, I'm fine, I'll just ink blend. Run out of room to circle them on this one. Okay. And so you definitely want to mask this off here, because this is part where your balloon strings and your next balloon is. So you definitely want to mask this off. This is definitely a part where I made a mistake. So I want to warn you about that, because I kind of forgot. Great. So mask that off. Now you're good. Now you can ink blend these and you're fine. Again, we're using Ripe Persimmon. Make sure I'm all lined up. And just quickly ink blend those. Make this guy an orange tabby. This is my kitty. My kitty is an orange kind of tabby cat, so this one's my kitty. And once you get that done, look at how cute he is. So all you're gonna have left to ink blend, and don't worry about that, because all that's gonna be die cut out, so you don't have to worry about that. But all we have left to ink blend here is the hat. And then you could do that now, or you could die cut it. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and die cut it now and then do the hat, because the hat's kind of a part of right there. But either or, it doesn't matter. There's also an example on the back of the stencil backer. I have that somewhere here. On this, let's see where that is. Line that up. Tape that down. Same kind of idea as like the face. It kind of is easier to die cut these parts first and then ink blend them, because it just makes lining up easier. Just like we did on the other two cats. Five minutes over, okay. Well, I keep doing that. So here's that kitty die cut out. Look at how great that die is to cut out those tiny little spaces. Isn't that awesome? And let's go ahead and start doing the last kind of little things, which is the hat and the balloon. Which I figure out where my stencil went. I'm gonna do that balloon real quick. Kind of line that up. He's real easy. I'm going to use Squeeze Lemonade for that. Again, you can use any of the rainbow colors. Okay, once I have that done, I have the little hat here, which I'll line up right there. And what color am I doing for that? Oh, my pink. So, which is worn lipstick. May want to tape off up here just to protect that. If you're a bit messy like me, you might want to do that. Because we're on the very last stretch. Don't want to mess it up now. And that. Thank you, worn lipstick, which is somewhere here. So now all we have left to do is the strings and the little face, and they're all together right here, all lined up. So once you get that face lined up, those strings should line up too. And we're gonna use black soot for that. So I'm just gonna, there's like these two little whisker marks here. That's what I'm gonna line up with, these two little whiskers. Kind of get that lined up. Looking through the stencil, making sure I'm on the paper. The strings go up to the balloons. And I think I got it there. That looks good. And again, you could draw it in with a pencil if you want and then take a marker. I'm going to ink blend with a little bit of black soot. This could be Distress Oxide or ink, either one works. This is just what I had out from our last card. And once we finish that, we are on home stretch, guys. We're a little bit over, but I think we're gonna be just like 15 minutes over, so not so bad, not so bad. Okay. Aren't they so cute? I'm glad you guys like them. I think they're really cute. Oh, look at how good that turned out. He's so cute. Love it. I love you can color them too with whatever colors you want. So we're gonna stop there. And now we just have to finish this card up with our pattern paper. So let me just move a little bit out of the way. Yes, Liz Meitinger designed these. She creates the cutest little critters ever. She's so good. Okay, just gonna clean a little here. So if you're not familiar with Waffle Flower's paper pads, let me tell you about how awesome they are. Because I love them. They're just so cool. So you should have, okay, now I feel like I need to be back zoomed out again. Hold on, let me lift this up if I can. Come on, stand. Ooh, it's not wanting to go up very much. All right, well, that's as good as it's gonna get, I guess. So these paper pads are awesome because the one, this is the rainbows, is just gorgeous. Look at all those colors, so, so, so pretty. And also the dimensions of this. These are so great for A2 cards because the measurements are 5.5 by 8.5. So if you cut one of these papers in half, so you measure over 4 1/4 and then cut, you have 2 A2 panels, which is awesome. Or you could even just take one of these sheets, fold them in half, and have this beautiful patterned card base, A2 card base, which is just, I think they're so, so cool. No waste, which is awesome. And how pretty is it? Just so pretty. And they work with a lot of our coordinating dies. You can see how you can place the die cut panel on top and really get kind of these cool effects. I love them. And all of our paper pads have coordinating enamel dots. So this is JJ's Rainbows enamel dots that coordinates perfectly with these JJ Rainbow paper pads. So that is so, so awesome. You guys, I believe, have this sampler pack. So the typical rainbow pad, whoops, looks like this. You get 3 of each design, and it's just beautiful. You just get more paper, but you get a good sampling here of what it looks like. But this is the full paper pad, JJ Rainbow's paper pad. So this is what our paper pads typically look like. This is just the sampler one, which I think you guys have. So you can flip through, and I can show you, you really could use any of the papers in here, but I picked this one here, I believe. Nope, I used a different one. But I could use this one here. I think I used one with purple. Was the one I used this one. Sheet. Let me show you this sheet so you can see. This is the sheet I used for my background here. I actually used this half here. So you can just rip it out, kind of give it a good fold so you don't tear it or anything, but they come out really cleanly. Like that. And then you would just cut it at 4 1/4, which I'll do real quick. Everything's falling down. Ah. Grab my paper trimmer real quick here just to do it on camera so you guys can see. Of course, you don't have to, if you don't want to cut it, if you don't want 2 panels, you could just score it in half and have it be your card base. That's definitely an option you can do too. So I'm gonna measure here at 4 1/4, and then I will cut it. 2 paper pads, or 2 A2 panels. I'm gonna use this one here. Grab that, one of the card bases that came in that cards and envelope set that you got. Just adhere it down. Could use, I like to use tape runners for pattern papers. How are we doing? Oh, 1 minute, we're almost done. Stick that down, and then you can adhere all your kitties. I like to use foam tape to give them, make them pop a little bit. Foam adhesive. And you also have your sentiment too. That was cut for you. You can add that as well. And I'll finish that real quick, and then we will be done. Hopefully you guys are following closely behind. Or even, you might even be ahead of me. I wouldn't be surprised if you were ahead of me at all. Cut this. Definitely don't have to do the foam tape. I just love that dimension. Do you have a sample of the way you use the stitchable cards? I do. I'll try to grab it as soon as I'm done with this. I gotta find them. I have a lot of stitchable cards that I created. They're awesome. Stitchables are so, so, so fun. I love to do. Those cross stitch. That was so fun. It was such a nice way to break up paper crafting, where I could kind of sit down and watch a show with my daughters or something and do stitching. I love that. It was really a relaxing, different way to paper craft. Okay, I'm gonna grab my finished card here just so I can see what I did. I did forget the little present here. Yeah, they're exactly the same as the dies would cut, which is what I would show you is what I made with the die, was what I die cut with the dies, which again is exactly the same. He's up here. Oh, I love how this comes together. Those colors just look so good. All that rainbow. And you could definitely, if you had the enamel dots, you could add the enamel dots to this. That would be so fun. Add some of that dimension. And that's going to go right there. So that will complete. I'll put all 3 cards up so you can see them. Well, I go try to grab the stitchables, a couple stitchable samples real quick. And there we go. Oh, so cute. So that's our 3rd card, our 1st card, and can't reach. Here's our lighthouse card. So those are all 3 of our cards that we made today. So fun with the Rose Bouquet Stencil-n-Stamp set, the Lighthouse Stencil-n-Stamp set, Birthday Kitty Stencil, and the Birthday Kitties matching die. And we also used the Rose Bouquet matching die for that as well. Let me grab see if I can grab samples of the stitchables real quick. Okay, well, I can't seem to find any real quickly here because my card samples are horribly not organized. I'm sorry, I apologize that. Otherwise, if I could find some real quick, I would share them, but I can't seem to find them offhand right away. I was hoping they'd be right on top, but of course they're not. Okay, so I'm going to turn the camera back to me. Just give me a second here. And sit down. Yes, we have lots of samples on our stitchable. Okay. Whoop. Let's see if I can get in shot. Thank you so much, guys, for sticking with me and powering through that last bit. I know we were going real fast. Does Waffle Flower have YouTube videos, stitch cards? Yes, we have lots of YouTube videos on our stitch cards, a lot. I've shared several where I showed how to use these stitchables and not do any stitching. So I shared some ideas for that, which I do have one of those handy. Here's a card that I made with the stitchables with no stitching. So I have a whole video on Waffle Flower's YouTube channel on that. And I also share ideas for using the stitchables, but not doing a lot of stitching. So that's on Waffle Flower's YouTube channel as well, for just some accents in case you don't want to have to stitch the whole design, if that's something you don't want to do. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's class where we got to play with some of Waffle Flower's new stencil and stamp sets. I think they're so awesome. I really love how they take out some of the elements of having to color out of that kind of that stress kind of element that can be, and it's great for beginners, I think, too, who are not used to coloring or intimidated by the fact of having to color stencils, I think, or color stamp sets. I think they are really a fun alternative to that. And I hope you guys had some fun and were able to finish your cards. And I appreciate you so much for being patient with me and working through with me. I thank you so much for your time. I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you have any questions, post them below. We'll come back and check and answer them and make sure you guys get all the answers that you need. Where do you find free patterns? They are on our website for the Stitchables. You can go to Waffle Flower, and if you type in the Stitchables that you're interested in, you can click on the product, and the product will have free downloads that you can download for the Stitchables. Thank you so much, Notions. Yes, thank you for having us. This was wonderful, and I really enjoyed the live opportunity to work with you guys and still be together, even if it's this way virtually. Thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And again, if you have any questions, just leave them down below, and we'll try to make sure we answer those in the comments below. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Look at how dirty I am. I hope you guys are not as dirty as I am. Bye, everyone. Thank you.